Is it all cynicism and delusional, or is it a big picture misunderstanding? I think it's delusional. The problem that I get is that whenever I have these conversations, I never get the answers to my questions. They always delusionally downplay the threat Republicans face because they have to, because otherwise they would understand what they're advocating for is suicide. They always equivocate between the two parties, even when it doesn't make any sense to. They always pretend that there's some kind of magical switch you could flip to just suddenly move. Like they'll basically argue, no, Republicans aren't going to win. What if just like every Democrat just voted for someone else somehow? Ridiculous, insane. But like that's the level of their answers are on. I don't think it's just a big picture thing, you know. I think is this just accelerationism? No, because accelerationists are honest enough to admit that they're trying to bring about a bad outcome in order to change the material circumstances. A lot of people who call themselves accelerationists are just reactionaries. So no, cynicism is justified. Well, no, you can be cynical, but cynicism isn't the same as being politically savvy. In fact, in many cases, they're kind of opposite. There's a reason why, if you want to know how politics works on like a institutional level, like a systemic level, if you want to read, I recommend going for Marx. If you want to talk to a human being, you talk to a liberal. You talk to like a liberal staffer. Those people know way the fuck more than your average Twitter leftist or college radical or whatever else. And that's not because their opinions might be great. It's just because they tend to have a respect for the institution and the systems. The ideal leftist is somebody who can balance revolutionary theory and revolutionary perspective with that like grounded systemic analysis, which of course Marx did. He did. That's why he's cool. There was only one out of 537 federally elected U.S. officials that is third party, and it is the same at state and local. There's a decrease over the last 20 years. Yeah, I just, the conditions right now are just not ones which produce effective outcomes when you're moving outside the two main parties. You know, use power where it exists. It's so depressing to have to advocate for the Dems, but until we can cause the collapse of the GOP and the fracturing of the Dems into two new parties, they're it. Also, if we abandon Manchin and West Virginia and pivot the money going towards this race to flipping other races, it might have resulted in a better result overall. Possibly. That is a possibility. Manchin has always been a pretty weird one himself, you know, in terms of his like weird viability, selective viability in that arena. I hate how doomers will say they're hopeful when they never offer any solutions. Yeah, they'll always say, I'm not a doomer, I'm hopeful. I believe things can be so much better. But the only ways that they think they can make things so much better is with pie-in-the-sky, unrealistic bullshit that can't actually happen, so they never have to try because nothing will ever meet their impossible standards. Yeah, really annoying. Anti-voting anarchists frustrate me, but at least they do protest, mutual aid, and direct actions. Armchair leftists who refuse to do anything get no respect. Yeah, I do think, again, it's like I said, think of it like keeping the lights on, you know? We cannot do anything under fascism unless by doing something you mean literally like eking out a bare existence in like the outskirts of cities and underground like fuck in terms of like direct political engagement of any kind. We need to be operating in a liberal democracy or something close to it. You vote, you keep the lights on, you can do whatever you want in the garage, do crazy shit. Turning the lights on doesn't build the shelf or whatever you're building, you know, but you need the lights on. You can't see. We as leftists honestly need to start pushing civics. The number of people that don't understand basic concepts of federalization and elections is baffling. Dude, the number of Twitter lefties who will blame Democrats for what Republicans do at a state level is so frustrating. Like they'll be like, oh, Biden's supposed to be good, but there are abortion laws, anti-abortion laws being passed. And it's like, where are the abortion law or the anti-abortion laws being passed? In red states. The blue states are safe. It's the red states where those laws are being passed, but they pretend like they don't, and then like randomly they'll get like indignant that Biden isn't acting like a dictator as though that would fix things. Like, well, he's the president, why doesn't he just oh, you mean just break the Constitution, commit a million crimes, turn everyone in America against him just to like try to change one thing that he couldn't enforce or hold up in court? Like it's like they don't, a lot of the people who do shit like that are not people who believe in democracy. They're Tankies. So they really do want a system where a strong man controls everything. They just want the strong man to agree with them. Exactly, Dionysus Fox. 10 out of 10 impassioned speech. You really sold me on voting blue, so you can work for the advocacy in the years between elections, so I think you'll win some people there. Yeah, right now, at this exact moment, with Biden being complicit in a genocide. I don't want to waste time trying to push people into voting for Biden in 2024 because, like, it's just not a good time. It's not an effective time to do that. But, you know, it's conceptually, mathematically valuable. As a trans woman, I don't really have the privilege to threaten to withhold my vote. Good for them, I guess. Honestly, with the anti-democracy stuff being what it is, I don't think any of us do. Like, we looked earlier at a recent truth from Trump, and he was basically talking about left-leaning Americans the way Nazis talked about Jews. I really don't think if Republicans dissolve our democracy and take full power, that they would stop with, banning transition or whatever. Yeah. Remember, the first people the Nazis went after were the socialists because those were the people most organized and capable of fighting back against the Nazi regime. Vaush is threatening to vote in a primary against them not work. No, it does. That's the thing. Anti-electoralists, for some baffling reason, don't seem to understand what the primary process is for. That's the whole point of the primary process, is you have different interests, different coalitions working within a party, and they put forward a bunch of candidates, and within that, you advocate for your guy in the primary. Bernie Sanders went from basically a nobody. I mean, he was a senator, but, relatively in the Democrat, national space, a nobody, to being right there under Hillary Clinton, previous Secretary of State, wife of former two-term president, right behind her. Like, the primary is for. They pretend that it doesn't happen. Like, when do we get a better candidate? The primary. How do you even talk to average workers as someone more wealthy than Vaush, easily and with high levels of autistic? To be clear, there's no wealth contests here. All right, that's cringe, and also you would win, Benjamin, from your donations, I assume. The whole being able to talk to workers thing, at the end of the day, being right is being right. Okay, the idea that a person has better opinions on electoralism because they're working class is really not true. It's just not true. No correlation. There's even more of a spurious correlation there than the idea that a black person would innately know something about black culture, black history. A lot of them do through circumstance, but having good political opinions because you're working class, I mean, meh. Why does this happen with Dems so much? I remember this happened in 2016 too. Why are we so easy to separate into factions but not Republicans? A less of an authoritarian mindset, I feel. Authoritarians are good at falling in line. It's a common misconception that people who are themselves politically authoritarian are very, domineering. In reality, they tend to be submissive. They're weak people who look to strongmen to give them answers. On the left, it still exists to an extent, but less of it, and for that reason, people tend to fracture more. There is still the potential for fracturing on the right, though. The MAGA stuff has been... there have been some shaky fracturing going on in the GOP lately. My dad used to say violent things about black people and was excited about Trump in 2016. He's done a 180 since then, Fed posting about Trump while I was visiting this weekend and sharing your Gaza view. Here's $20 to celebrate. Holy shit, that is fantastic. That is really, really awesome. I'm really happy to hear that. Why can't leftists run as Republicans? I think there are some very marginal situations where there can be a benefit to running for the Republicans, for the opposing team, rather than for our own. But they're very, very specific. I think it's a very specific, very marginal environment there,